All right, this is the Committee on Ways and Means. This is Monday, March 23rd, 2015. We're at 6 p.m. Councilor Del Sola.
Here.
Councilor Heelan.
Here.
Councilor Napolitano.
Here.
I have Councilor DeFlorio.
Yeah.
And I have Councilor Capone.
Here.
5 members present. I do have a quorum.
Stand there for pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. The first piece and only piece, this is order by Councilor Frank Capone as president to transfer $94,066 from the budgetary fund balance into the following city accounts to fund salaries and expenses into the newly created Office of Gaming, Accountability, and Development for the remainder of this fiscal year. Salaries will be $67,500 and expenses $26,566.
Councilor DeFlorio.
Thank you. Could we please invite Dave Rodriguez and Richard Biscay?
Good evening, guys. Good evening. Just state your name for the record.
Dave Rodriguez, Assistant City Solicitor.
Richard Vesque, City Auditor.
Okay. I have a few questions. First, I'd like to know what this position involves. Why are we putting this position in effect, and for what reason do we need it?
Sure. First of all, thank you very much for referring this into committee. It's great to have the opportunity to discuss it in further detail. It's something that we spent a lot of time on. As everyone knows, the WIN project WIN was awarded the license back in September, and since then the city has undertaken an enormous undertaking on how to build it. Of course, the lion's share of work in terms of the construction, the entire construction will be undertaken by WIN itself. The city plays a valuable role in a lot of the things. First of all, ensuring that the inspection and the permitting is done transparently, appropriately, on time. And we have certain responsibilities under the host community agreement that we have to live up to, as does WIN. It was after this, in the effort to make sure that we can build this as quickly as possible, and for the city to avoid to become a pinch point. It's our hope to establish an office to coordinate the entire effort on behalf of the city, from building, inspection, workforce development, implementation of the HCA, a liaison to the Massachusetts Gaming Commission, and every other issue that might come up. This office, to be known as the Office of Gaming Accountability and Development, will coordinate those efforts on behalf of the city, working with the individual department heads to ensure that this is built responsibly, on time, and with the city's wholehearted support. I had a thought and it just left. I apologize. This will be an office it's entirely housed at City Hall of city employees. No employees, these will not be private employees that have a house at City Hall. And the substantive work will be placed upon the department heads themselves. However, a lot of the administrative efforts, bookkeeping, procurement, those will be handled by this office in order to allow these department heads to focus solely on the substantive jobs that they have to do. To place any of these efforts on an individual department would shock that department because of the huge undertaking that this is. And we want to we have two priorities that are key: making sure that this is built on time and as quickly as possible, and also ensuring that the day-to-day operations that these departments have to undertake aren't put aside because of the priority of this development. So we want to ensure that that doesn't happen, that the day-to-day operations of City Hall and that taxpayers and residents are able to get all the services they need and have this built within the established timeline by WIN.
Now, so this is something that the license commission didn't say we have to have. This is just so that things will run smoother?
Yes.
Okay. So you will be working for the city of Everett?
Yeah, entirely for the city. I understand the confusion of it, but this is the Everett Office of Gaming Accountability and Development. We stand, any employee that's there, whether it be me or someone else, will work for the city of Everett, report directly to the mayor.
All right, so this isn't a position that we have to have, but
No.
we should have only to let things run smoother.
And
Now,
this
the
is
other
also,
question-
it's also important to recognize that this is a position that's not permanent. This is a position that will exist, that's not going to exist in perpetuity. It'll allow itself to become phased out once the facility opens. And then in 3 years, once that happens, the shock to the departments will no longer exist. This department will no longer have a reason to exist. And I fully anticipate that and that's a decision for the mayor, but I fully anticipate that this will be something that will be phased out over time and allow the departments to absorb the workload that comes from the accountability part of it in a more effective way.
Now, I know that on our transfer, it says that this money will be reimbursed from the wind,
Under the host agreement,
and the host agreement.
Yep, you did.
Now, one other question before I forget.
Sure.
There's a lot of new councils here that probably haven't seen the host agreement.
Sure.
I mean, I know they may have. I'm not speaking for them. Is there any possible way that they can get a copy of the host agreement? So-
absolutely,
Okay.
yeah.
So this is
It's online in a number of places. I probably have several hundred copies in my office kicking around because we mailed it out to every voting household in the city, and I have the extras in my office.
No, I also have it, but I just wanted
And I'm
to
happy
make
to.
it clear that sometimes you have something, you read it, and
Sure.
it leaves your mind, and maybe if they have it in front of them, they can actually see that that's in the host agreement.
So, Counselor, it's not only just what the host community agreement says, but also how it's being implemented and what it means. So I'm always happy to sit down with, this is a project that I've been fortunate enough to work on since the very first day. I was one of along with the mayor and our outside councils, I was happy to play a role in the development of the host community agreement. I understand it very well. If anybody has any questions, whether it be counselors or the public, and they want to talk it through, I'm always available to do that. That's going to be one of the main functions of the office, is the transparency and act as a resource for people at City Hall, people in this chamber, people in the public, so that they can get better understanding of the project and how it can affect their lives in a very positive way, and especially with the workforce development aspects of it, connecting people to this development is going to be very important. That's going to be a vital role that we're going to serve.
Okay. The other question I have, this probably has nothing to do with this, but I'm gonna ask it anyways. People ask me, and I'm gonna come right on and ask you.
Sure.
Do you plan on working for the Wynn Casino?
I have absolutely no plan of doing that, and I'd be precluded from doing so. It's my interpretation of the Gaming Act that I'd be precluded from doing so.
Mr. Chairman, that's not part of this discussion. That's not a good question.
Right. I know it's not a good question.
Yeah.
People ask me to ask it, and I wanted to ask it here instead of asking
The
Senator.
answer is absolutely not.
But thank you. I know it's out of line, and I said that before I asked it, so, thank you. I don't have any further questions.
Counselor Hanlon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking at the calendar, and it says the newly created Office of Gaming and Accountability and Development. And you had just mentioned that you hope to establish that. Is it established, or is it coming?
The work is being done. It's part of there's a revised version of the admin code that's being approved by the mayor as we speak, and it will be before you very shortly. It has a number of technical changes in it, including the addition of the Office of Gaming Accountability and Development.
Is there anything that the city council has to do to help create this office? I mean, does it come to us? We don't do anything. You just create it, you create it.
Yeah, it would probably be done, it would be done through the admin code, but it's something, the reason that we're coming to you, before you for a transfer, and Rich can speak of this as well, is that we're fronting the money so that we can get the ball rolling. And so we
think
can
to-
start developing the budget, the overall
And,
budget for the department.
So to answer-
It's okay. I don't need a long explanation. It sounded like you said, are you involved in this?
What do you mean?
Are you going to be on this committee?
The office?
Yeah,
I anticipate running the office, yeah.
you will. And how does that affect the job that you have now?
I would leave that job.
You
I would
leave
no
that.
longer do that job.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And if I could ask, Mr. Viscay, how are you involved in this? You just do what you're doing now?
Well, this is a newly created budget, so when you adopted fiscal year 15 budget, this didn't exist in the document, so there's no appropriation for this office, so what we had to do is we had to create a budget account for the Office of Gaming Accountability, and now we have to fund that budget. So what's before you is an appropriation request from free cash to establish this department so that we can now begin to operate that department. And
The other thing is that, are you going to be working out of City Hall?
Yes.
So you'll have an office in this building? Well, that takes care of two questions. Number of employees in this office?
A director and one administrative support staff.
So 2 people?
Yep.
No secretary, no, nothing?
Oh, the admin, we probably all.
But that would be
together.
somebody in here, or,
To be determined. That's a question of hiring, that would be a hiring practice of the mayor.
oh, okay. And the money that comes back to us from Win, is that, the councilor said that we get reimbursed for that. Will we get reimbursed for all this money?
It's being fully negotiated now. So to answer the question, the reason that we have to set up the office beforehand is that there's a pretty comprehensive budget that needs to, in the way Rich, and one of the reasons that Rich has been key in helping us along, is we're gonna set it up almost like an enterprise.
Okay.
Pursuant to the host agreement, we're not gonna be charging a building permit fee, because of some of the because of the legal issues surrounding the charging of a permit fee this large. The purpose of a permit fee is to charge exactly what it takes, what it costs the city in order to issue a permit and build the development from its perspective. So we're going to assess what those costs actually are, whether they be third-party consultants for inspection and permitting, and whether they be the commitment of City Hall staff to making sure that the project moves forward. So we're going to identify those things in terms of a percentage, and we're in the point of doing that now.
Okay.
But we feel that the establishment of this office is an important first step.
Okay. The reason I was asking about that is because we're asked to give you $94,066, and, but next year, you'll look like you'll be coming in for $376,000. That's about, this is
No,
only
the-
for 3 months.
No, the way the budget has been presented is based upon a calendar year, so the appropriation request that's being asked is for half of a fiscal year,
So this is-
January
this-
1st.
This $94,000 is for 3 months, correct?
That's 6 months.
It's going to go past to June?
No, we would retroactively allocate the cost of the budget, because again, the work is being done, so we just don't have the budget to allocate those costs, so if and when this gets adopted and the free cash is approved to create this department, what we'll do is we'll do an expense transfer of the expenses of Dave's time and
And it's just
administrative
the way it
time
was
back
worded
to
in the
this.
calendar, the calendar says for the remainder of this fiscal year. That's-
Right, so
that's
January,
3
the
months.
idea is that this budget would be from January 1st to June 30th, which would be half the fiscal year, and then theoretically, with nothing changing, the appropriation request as part of the budget for fiscal year
So that's
16 will
half.
be
So
double that.
It'll be 2 times 94. That's-
Right, but again, these, some of these numbers are fluid, and things may come up. We're in the process of developing what we believe are costs that are relevant to the operation of the Gamma Accountability Office, and which costs are actually reimbursable. Again, you get section 1B, number 5, permit fees. City shall prepare and submit to Win a budget for all costs which the city will seek payments or reimbursements hereunder. So we're in the process of developing that. But the first stage is to actually create the department. And now we're starting to meet with all the departments to say, okay, what percentage of your work is going to have to do with the building permit process of this? So there's some work to be done, but this is the initial first step to start it off.
Okay, one last question. Will we be getting reports from both, well, I know you'll be giving us reports, but will we getting reports from you, like where you are, how it's going, what percentage and so
Yeah,
forth?
whenever you'd like. I can provide those monthly, quarterly, biannually, happy to do that, and provide information to whoever's
Okay,
looking
well,
for it.
we'll probably look at it later on and
Yep.
decide. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Councilor
Okay.
Napolitano?
Thank you. All right, I'm got a few questions, some of which have been answered, so I'll try not to take these things out of context, but I understand that the first step is to establish the department. Now, as the city solicitor, doesn't the new charter have a provision that requires the city council to be notified when a new department is being formed? Isn't there a process under section 5?
I don't have the charter in front of me.
I believe there is, and my concern is that if we're creating such an important department, and transparency is the issue, shouldn't we be following the process right from the get-go?
Sure.
Now, initially, I was told when I started looking into this a little bit, was that it was through either some type of legislative or some other type of process that circumvented that. But as you've said, there's nothing requiring us to form this department. It's a good idea. And we're trying to make sure that the expedience of getting the properties developed is done. Again, I just want to make sure we're not missing any steps. We've got a new charter. We should be operating exclusively under the new charter.
I believe by coming before you and asking for the appropriation to establish this department, we are in fact asking the council to establish this department. That's my interpretation of it,
But
so.
the information we're being asked here, the questions we're asking here is mechanics of the department. This is a financial committee, so we're having to go beyond our realm in asking financial questions, to ask questions that should have been put before the entire city council prior to the formation of the committee. Cart before the horse, that's all I'm looking at. I just want to make sure
Yeah,
that.
I can take a look at it. I
If
think
you
that's-
could,
yeah,
please,
yeah,
because
that's
again, we
fine.
want to make sure that
I think so.
all the Ts are crossed.
Yeah.
the Is
Well, yeah,
are dotted.
I think it's kind of, the department kind of exists in a de facto state. The work is being done kind of spread out in my office, because the work doesn't stop. So we're kind of playing catch-up now, to a certain extent, so, but I'm happy to take a look at whatever.
I mean, I'm looking at, we're looking for money here to take care of the first 6 months' existence of that department, and yet we're hearing about the department in this request. Here it is, halfway through the last, well, we're in the third quarter right now of the fiscal year. I would have hoped that we would have gotten some information prior to this, so then when we came back, we'd be better prepared to be able to ask the financial questions, especially if it's a department that is being retroactively reimbursed to the first of this year, and we're having a discussion about this in a piece in the end of March. It's just not a logical process for me. You answered my questions regarding the duration and the role of before and after, so I'm glad to hear about that. Yeah, that's my main thing.
Okay.
Because, there are people who oppose this project, as small a group as it is. My feeling is that for such an important project, let's make sure we're covering all the bases, so we're not leaving anything for anybody to question.
Sure, I'm happy to take a look.
I appreciate
That's
that.
fine.
Okay.
Councilor Capone?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I echo the sentiments of the cart before the horse, because the way I look at it, we're looking for funding for a position that hasn't happened yet. And I know that you were talking about a revised version of administrative code, and I'm asking you in your capacity as Assistant City Solicitor, with the administrative code that was passed, there is no position on there for this, so we would need a revised version. And even though I think it's being said that by coming forth for the money, that's in essence creating the position, I don't think it is. I mean, I think we need, and I'm asking for your opinion on this one, don't we need an amended version of the administrative code that creates this position? Or because it's temporary in nature, we don't need to, or?
I don't know the answer to that question. I almost want to defer that to the city solicitor
Okay.
for her, because I don't want to be self-serving
Sure.
in my answer.
And-
And I think that's the most fair way to put it.
And that's my next question, because the folks at home are saying, okay, well, the first I heard of the potential of a gaming accountability and development team was when I read in the paper, I saw
Yeah.
the face of the folks that went to Vegas, where I think as city council might be a good idea if we got that heads up a little sooner about development of a department. And it mentioned you as the new director, which isn't your doing.
Well,
But-
it
but-
was. That
okay.
was an oversight. That was my
Okay.
oversight. It should,
All right.
if anything, it should have said acting, if
So,
anything.
well, I didn't even know we had an acting, I didn't know we had a committee, I didn't know we had a department
Yeah.
or a anticipated department. I happened to see it because I opened the paper. And then as far as the city solicitor, there's the two of you. So you're probably the more versed on this because you've been involved with this process from the beginning.
Yeah.
But the question would be, the folks at home, it would seem improper that you're here to talk about this position that's more than likely going to go to you, but instead of the city solicitor, but the reality is because you could speak more to it, because
Yeah.
you're more entrenched in it.
And I think I'm not going to assume that an appointment is going to happen until it does.
Right.
So if it's at the mayor's prerogative, as well as the council's prerogative in general,
Okay.
to approve any appointment that exists. So I wouldn't feel comfortable assuming that.
Okay.
I will say, I have been doing the job for the past couple of years, in a kind of a de facto capacity, organizing departments and doing things and working closely with related departments, so. But I understand the concerns of
Sure,
the committee.
sure.
But we're trying to move as quickly as, we're trying to match up the speed of government to the speed of business.
Right.
And that's a very difficult thing
Yeah, it
sometimes.
doesn't always work that way.
It's really hard.
and
So
it-
we're not
it-
looking to skip steps, we're looking to kind of try to play catch up.
And that goes to the point that you've been working on it de facto for years. I know that we really don't have anything in traction until we have a license that was granted, which was, and at that point, it probably should have been, this is not your call, it's the administration's call. It should have been a communication to the city council of what the game plan was, so that we could kind of, figure out that we're going to have a new department or whatever it is, and then we're going to have to fund that department. Now, with regards to employees, I think you said there'd be a director and administrative assistant.
Yep.
Is the administrative assistant more of the traditional secretary type of administrative assistant, or it's going to be like a number two person, and there'll be, I don't know if I understood there'd be a floating secretary that would be shared
No,
by departments.
it's designed to be more substantive than that. Not
Okay.
necessarily somebody who's strictly a secretary, doing administrative, paper management. It's designed to be something more substantive than that. Because, again, there is a lot to do, and a lot of it doesn't fit, a lot of the projects that exist in relation to the project don't necessarily fit inside a nice little box. It's
Sure.
sort of a regular department, so we're gonna look to that to be a catch-all and give that person a little more responsibility than would normally be received by an admin or a secretary.
Okay. And you foresee the position being something that's oversight during the building phase, and then the day-to-day, and then eventually phasing out. So it's not permanent. As far as, one of the things that you had mentioned was acting as liaison to the gaming commission. So once the day-to-day is established and this phases out, who would then be the liaison to the gaming commission or any issues like that at state
Yeah,
level?
There's different committees and subcommittees of the Gaming Policy Advisory Committee, which is established by statute. There's subcommittees to that, to which the mayor has appointments.
Okay.
So that's kind of the liaison now. I talk very regularly with the ombudsman, John Ziemba, him and I have developed a rapport to try to troubleshoot problems, and kind of, they look to us a lot of times as for the perspective of a host community when those things happen, and or when issues come up, or they're just looking for advice because they're not a host community, they're a regulatory agency. There's three subcommittees right now that have received they've asked us to make appointments to. So it's good that we anticipate there's going to be a couple more of those. It's the Community Mitigation Subcommittee of the Gaming Policy Advisory Committee, the Local Community Mitigation Subcommittee, and the Access and Opportunity Subcommittee of the Gaming Policy Advisory Committee.
Okay, and you had mentioned that if it is you who gets this position, and again, not your call, if it is you, that you would be leaving the city assistant's position. Is that a temporary leave and going back, or are we going to be hiring a new assistant city solicitor?
I don't know.
Okay, those are all important questions, and I know that you can't really speak to those, that it's not your call. But those are concerns that I have, because if you transition out of the assistant city solicitor's position into this director's position, now we have a city solicitor and no one else. Are we going to hire? If we hire, then that job doesn't exist for you any longer. Now you're director, that's temporary, and eventually you're out of a job. So unless we find some new department to put you into.
I'll find a way to keep busy. I'll stay off the streets, I promise.
And then the last question I have for you is, neither one of you can speak to this. Obviously, we want you to be paid for what you're doing, but part of this transfer is anticipating past work. We're talking about the last quarter, but we're talking about the last half of the fiscal year. So some of these funds are retro compensation. So in theory, you would, if it is you, well, actually, you've been doing work, so I guess it would be you.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay,
Yeah.
so whatever work that was done, would it be in excess, if it's you and you're to get compensated, and speak to it any way you guys want to, would you be getting compensated in excess of your assistant city solicitor's salary? I'm sure you probably put in additional time beyond what you'd put into that department. I'm a little concerned. I'm very concerned that we have a cart in front of a horse.
Okay.
And here we are asking to fund a position that we didn't know existed, for work that we didn't know that was happening, for funding that, was going to be retroactive. And I'm sure that the folks watching at home have a concern about that, as they should. And as a city government, we do. And I think that we need to have better communication between the administration and the legislative branch for things of this nature. we're working, the ideal is to work together for the benefit of the community and for the citizens, and we're all willing to do that. But if the two departments don't talk, the only people that lose are the residents in the city at large. So I have questions about what's going to happen with regards to the department, what you're looking at in terms of a salary for that department, and retroactive funding of work that we weren't aware that was occurring. So those are the issues that I have. And I'm not looking to get anybody caught in the crossfires on that, but those are legitimate concerns that I have. And again, couldn't put it any better, cart before the horse. So I don't have any other questions.
Thank you, Counselor. From the chair, please. Great questions. I have a list here. I got two that I have to ask that may have been answered. Dave, would your position be, if you took this over next week, would your position be filled that you're holding right now?
That's a question, that's above my pay grade. That's a question for the mayor and for the mayor's office.
Oh, the other question was, the people going to help you, if you have a team of 3 or 4 other individuals, would they also be paid through the casino of Wynn itself, or would that come out of the city?
I don't understand the question.
Well, there's yourself, and then you say you need about,
No one's gonna take a dime directly from Wynn. All the money would be received by the city, and then appropriated by you.
so if you have 2 or 3 people helping you,
Let me try to answer. I think, if I'm hearing correctly, there would be other departments, auditing, for example, that has a role in administering this office of gaming. And to the extent of what percentage of my salary or my office is justifiable in this process of reimbursement is something that we're developing right now. So the idea was to come forward to establish the department. Now, reading the administrative organization, I can understand a little bit better on how this should have been brought before you as a department and then ask for the money. But the idea was that to try to make this as clean of a process as possible to bring before Wynn and start these negotiations on what are eligible reimbursable costs. The idea is to compartmentalize them into a department so that it's not pulling a percentage from here, 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 and everywhere. We want to try to keep it as narrow a scope as possible for this office, and then certainly there are other offices within the City Hall that would have a role in this, but to what percentage of that is, it's developing now. We're going to start having some meetings and to ask the particular departments what effect they think this would have, and again, we got to go before Wynn and say, this is what we believe are eligible reimbursable costs in lieu of the building permit. So that's kind of phase 2 of the process, and where right now I'd say in phase 1 or 1A or 1B or what have you. But that's the idea of what we're trying to accomplish here. It wasn't, we certainly didn't mean to put the cart before the horse or not be transparent. I thought by coming before you and asking for an appropriation to a department that we've proposed to develop, that was clear. But again, reading the article, administrative organization, it's pretty apparent that we should have came before you and said, hey, we want to create this department, and then came before you for the funding. So that's the intent and the logic behind what we're trying to do here.
one more question. In a perfect world, I know this is on the agenda for the meeting tonight. When would you would prefer to have this? How soon do we have to pass this if we have more questions next meeting?
The work is ongoing, so the work's gonna get done. If you have continuing questions, I'd rather have them answered to your liking before it goes forward. So it doesn't affect the daily operation. The work's gonna get done no matter what. So we're happy to proceed and defer to if you have any further questions, and we can get you further answers as well.
Okay, thank you. Councilor DeFlorio?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is in front of there's only 5 of us here. So we have 6 other councilors that haven't heard anything right now, which means this is gonna be in front of them in a half hour. So my recommendation is that you're gonna have to come back up again and explain everything all over again. There are 6 other councilors that are not here, unfortunately, unless this body decides to hold it. that's, you know, that's up to them, but you would rather have this passed now? What's the difference if you pass it a month from now?
I'll defer to the wisdom of the body.
But will it make a difference? Will that cause a problem if we pass it? I don't want to hold up the casino in any way or form. I want everything to go smooth. I want to make sure everything goes smooth. And I want
It's
everybody
not.
to
It will
understand
not.
that.
It absolutely will not. The work is too important to let this was something we viewed as a critical first step, but not a fatal first step if it doesn't get passed. Right now, we are prepared to continue ongoing the work in that informal de facto basis, because the work is so important. And we're gonna keep our eye on the ball and make sure that the project gets our full attention, regardless of whether the committee takes action tonight or not.
Okay. I just want to make sure everything goes smooth and nothing gets held back and then,
Nothing-
you know,
no.
we get blamed for it.
It's
so-
it's too important. So that's the answer, is that it's far too important to let, I understand the committee's wish to be deliberate, and I respect that. So by all means, we're gonna keep working to the fullest extent.
All right, thank you. I don't have any further questions.
Councilor Napolitano?
Well, seeing as how this is primarily a reimbursement of work that's already being done and salaries, I mean, I really would like to make sure that we leave no stone unturned, and we're not leaving ourselves open. I mean, what I would personally like to see, and you can put that in the form of a motion, is that we hold this over pending an administrative order to form the committee at our next regular meeting, because it won't be able to get on tonight's agenda. While we're holding on to this will at least allow the committee to be able to put this out in a more efficient manner. I would not want to send it back and have to go through the whole process over again. I think that's kind of ridiculous.
Appreciate that.
But I would like to see us take a step to at least have before the full body, an explanation of the formation of this committee through an administrative order. And that way it'll be easier for us to relay to our colleagues exactly why this exists. Where right now, this raised a lot of questions, forcing us to do some legitimate research, which is necessary in doing the job. And I just don't want to leave any stone unturned. There's always been enough controversy in the community regarding the casinos in the first place, pro and con. Let's make sure that we're not adding to that inadvertently.
I think the best thing I can say is that the office, the main purpose of the entire office is to encourage transparency,
Yeah.
not to discourage it. So that's why I have absolutely no problem with it. The mayor is 100% committed, as he has been since the first time that Wynn came to town, to making sure that this was an inclusive and process that everybody had the opportunity to share their opinion on. So I'm happy to do that. Like I said, we're going to keep going. So, and whether it be an informal capacity or if we have to set up desks in the parking lot, we're going to keep going because we understand how important this is.
Yeah, no, I definitely get the urgency of this.
Yeah.
And, Pete, there isn't a
Not
day
going
that
on.
goes by where someone doesn't ask me, when's this happening, when's that happening? I forget, 2 weeks ago, we had snow up to our ears, and
Yeah.
there wasn't any way to get out.
Counselor, if you have those questions, please call, because there has been a lot going on, there has been a lot happening, although it might seem quiet. There's an incredible amount happening, and we're doing our best to keep up.
Well, I'm going to make that a motion. I'm going to motion that we hold this on to our next meeting in the interim. The administration submit a administrative order so the full body can get the full idea of what is involved here.
I'm sorry, on the motion?
Well, if we could, do we have any other questions for the guests? Because we really should be making
Yes,
motions.
Councilor Hanlon.
That
Then I'll defer to Councilor Hanlon.
I'll withdraw my motion until any questions are completed.
Councilor Hanlon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a funny question that came in the back of my mind. Is the Office of Game Accountability and Development in any way associated with the Access and Opportunity Committee?
No, the Access and Opportunity Committee is a subcommittee of the Gaming Policy Advisory Committee of the Massachusetts Gaming Commission.
Okay, but we have an appointment that goes on that?
The mayor has an appointment, yeah.
Okay, so that won't be you?
No,
Could be kind of a
I
conflict.
don't,
wouldn't it?
well, it wouldn't be a conflict, because it's, I serve on the local community, I serve in the Community Mitigation Subcommittee.
Okay.
I'm a placeholder for that. And Jamie Erickson serves on the local Community Mitigation Subcommittee, because we're familiar with the project, we're familiar with community mitigation practices. so it made sense for us to do those. So, yeah, but the anticipation is that we were placeholders until we could find somebody else to do it. They needed an appointment that day, so I drew the
Do you know
short
if
straw.
anybody has been appointed to this?
I do not know.
You don't know?
I do not.
Okay.
To my knowledge, no one hasn't been appointed yet.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Second
Thank you.
motion.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I will restate that motion that we hold this in committee for till our next meeting. In the interim, that the administration files an administrative order to form the department.
Okay, Council Capone, did you have a?
Yeah, if I
comment?
could, I'd like to make a different motion. And the reason being, I understand the intent. The reason being that we saw how many questions we had here. And this is a huge item. There's no way we're going to be able to relay this out to our colleagues to any level of satisfaction if we played a tape recorder. So what I would recommend is that we refer this piece out to our meeting with a recommendation that it be laid on the table, that the mayor submit an order, revised order to the administrative code for the next meeting, and that a representative from the mayor's office and the city solicitor's office attend that meeting. That way we can find out what the impact is on the city solicitor's office, whether or not it's going to be a permanent or a part-time position, and whether or not the retroactive funding and all of that. And all the councilors can be there, and they can ask their questions and get their answers, because this is a very, very huge issue. So that would be my motion.
Council Hanlon?
Yeah, I would like to second Councilor Capone's motion, but I would like to add one thing on there, that if we do table it at our council meeting, that it be tabled until such time as that information from the mayor, the administrative order comes from the mayor. So I don't want to take it up at our next meeting if it's not there. So if you don't mind me adding that on?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would say that if we lay it on the table, give the mayor the opportunity to send the revised administrative code. If it doesn't come, you just lay it on the
Just
table again.
keep it
Yeah,
until
just
it
keep
comes
laying on
back.
the table until the code comes in, because it serves a lot of purposes to put it out in the body, not only to get everyone an opportunity to talk about it, it's actually going to move this process a lot faster, too. If we leave it in committee, we're delaying time there, we're asking questions, then it's not going to get out till maybe our second meeting, and then everyone's still going to have questions then. So by putting it out to our meeting tonight, referring it out, that it be laid on the table in order that the mayor can submit a revised administrative code, and representatives could attend to our following meeting. We could get all the answers we need and possibly vote on it the very next council meeting. And in the event that, to the councilor's concern, in the event that the revised code isn't there and there isn't a representative that can answer the questions, just keep laying it on the table until you get the answers you need to make an intelligent decision.
Council Napolitano?
I mean, I agree with that. That was the intent of my motion, but I can see one distinct difference is my recommendation, keep it in committee, yours putting it out to the body, it'll actually allow us to operate sooner on it. And I've got no issue at all with that, because I'm of that mindset. So I'm going to withdraw my motion, and I will support Council Capone's motion.
Council Florio?
Now, when this comes in front of the body as a whole, we won't be able to vote on it that night, is that correct? We have to wait 2 weeks to vote on it? If everything is answered, can you vote on it that night? I want a little clear understanding. I
Council
don't want to be
Capone?
able to come on the floor
Point of
and
order.
then send it back to committee,
Yeah,
okay?
nope.
So,
Point of order, through the chair. We can vote on it, we can enroll it. The only issue that we have is we cannot formally ordain anything. It can't be finalized the first time it's in front of the
Right.
body. But the reality is, it's not the first time it's in front of the body. It's going to be on tonight. It'll be on the next time, so we're fine.
It's going to be on the meeting tonight, and then we're going to hold this over until we get more information from the mayor's office.
That's
And
the
at that point-
recommendation. Yeah, that's the recommendation.
So
So,
it's gonna go out
right
with no
away, it's already on
recommendation then?
once. It's already on once, it'll be on a second time. It actually came into this committee, so it'll be the third time. So it's been before us multiple times, so we're safe.
Correct.
okay, call who's in favor.
Mr. Chairman, just one other question too, and that is that when the administrative order comes down, does that have to be referred to committee, or can we just pass it right then that night? Anybody? tested that night? Thank you. No further questions.
We have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it.
That all that's here?
All in favor?
That's it.